All right, so I want to begin by asking you about what we heard from the judge. Is it unusual for a judge to tell jurors to question the testimony of witnesses?
It's not unusual, but it certainly doesn't happen often if those two things can live in the same realm, essentially. I think what the judge did there was incredibly appropriate. I mean, Her Honor's responsibility was to ensure that the jurors knew the rules of the game that they were playing and knew what to evaluate when they went into that jury room. And so, a judge who frequently sits in criminal courts and frequently hears evidence from both lay individuals as well as police officers took her own personal experience and articulated that to the jury to remind them that, hey, just because these people wear a badge, it doesn't make them more credible than other people, and they ought not to be believed simply because they're police officers. So I commend Her Honor in doing what she did because it was completely appropriate, in my opinion.
A lot of legal experts have said this case should never have gone to trial. It was just too weak. Do you agree with that?
From what I've read, of course, not having any specific involvement in the trial, yes, I would agree with that. And it appears that there's a lot of people involved, again, in the criminal justice system who share that belief, both from the judge at the bail stage all the way through again to Justice Malloy's comments in relation to what the jury ought to be familiar with. But it did seem incredibly weak. In fact, it seems that at points in time in the trial, from what I've read, the Crown didn't even really believe in their own case, right? Not even putting their own theory of the case to their own expert in relation to how the constable was struck by the vehicle.
So now an investigation will be launched by the OPP into Toronto Police as to what happened here. How will that play out?
Well, I think it's a great thing. I mean, one of the things that this case showed everyone was how the justice system works. Mr. Zameer was found not guilty. Another thing that this case showed was what we could call, I guess, the seedy underbelly of the criminal justice system. The fact that we have overcharging by Crown attorneys, the fact that we have collusion or fabrication or lying from witnesses on the stand. And so hopefully this investigation takes place and hopefully it uncovers more of the things that criminal defense lawyers like myself and my colleagues throughout the country we work with on a daily basis and we fight against. So I think it's going to open up a lot of people's eyes to what actually happens in the criminal justice system. And I think it's time that that takes place.
All right, so in terms of what is next, and this is a two-parter, could the officers possibly face reprimand? And where does that leave Zameer if he wanted to take action against Toronto police? Is a civil case possible?
Well, certainly the officers can face reprimand. I mean, technically, the officers could face criminal prosecution. As it relates to what Mr. Zameer ought to do, I think he should be talking to a civil lawyer because, yes, I do think that there's some action that he can take against the Toronto Police Service. His life was thrown into disarray for a number of years, and that's got to be worth something.
Nick Cake, thanks so much. Nick is a criminal defense lawyer joining us this morning from London, Ontario.